When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With twinspires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with twinspires. And now you can race to victory with twinspires tournaments.
Welcome back to the twinspires Racing Roundtable. I'm Ashley Anderson here with James Scully and Vance Hansen. Today we're going to look back on champion 2-year-old Citizen Bull's win in his 3-year-old debut, the Grade 3 Robert B. Lewis. We'll also evaluate the other Kentucky Derby and Oaks prep races from the weekend. And as always, what else caught your eye from other performances around the country or overseas sometimes, with Vance especially. But before we start, I wanted to talk about Derby Week tickets now on sale at KentuckyDerby.com, and we have a whole lot happening, starting with April 26th, opening night of the spring meet, and then, of course, May 3rd is the 151st Kentucky Derby. And on Oaks Day, we also have the Survivors Parade. Submissions are now open, so head to KentuckyDerby.com if you would like to participate in that Survivors Parade on Oaks Day. All right, let's move over to Citizen Bull's win in the Robert B. Lewis. He now is the leader. He was the leader, but now is still the leader on the Kentucky Derby leaderboard with 60 points. James, do you feel like he is the one to beat in the Kentucky Derby?
Well, I do think, Citizen Bull, Citizen Bull is obviously the most accomplished 3-year-old male at this point. He confirmed himself as a major Kentucky Derby contender, winning the Robert B. Lewis Stakes by open lengths last Saturday. And if you guarantee him an uncontested lead and a moderate pace in the Kentucky Derby on May 3rd, then he figures to make the most of it. He's done it 3 races in a row. He's had easy trips, setting moderate paces on like a length and a half lead in the American Pharoah, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and the Robert B. Lewis. That's not to say, he won't be able to get into a race with a legitimate pace and still run his race, but he certainly hasn't faced one in his last 3 stakes attempts. So that's going to be the next challenge for him. I'm always a little bit hesitant when these 3-year-old colts look like world beaters, getting everything their own way, because the Derby usually doesn't shape up that way. But I won't take anything away from Citizen Bull. He's in the right barn with 6-time Kentucky Derby winner Bob Baffert, and he's got a lot going for him.
Vance, do you agree?
Yes, for the most part. I'll echo a lot of what James said, but say it in a slightly different way. As the reigning 2-year-old champion, and in the midst of a 3-race win streak, he is still the primary target. I don't think we learned a whole lot in the Lewis, as James alluded to. He got on to his customary front-running tactics, didn't receive a whole lot of pressure in there. And it was a victory similar in style, if not substance, to the American Pharoah and Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Going into the race, I thought this could have been a good opportunity for him to demonstrate his rating prowess. I thought his stablemates had shown enough speed in their earlier starts to possibly control the pace here and perhaps let him stalk a length or 2 behind. But after he stumbled at the start, and he proved a little too keen for Martin Garcia, who just kind of let him make the lead again, as he did in his last 2 starts as a 2-year-old. And so it was a virtual rerun of the American Pharoah and Breeders' Cup Juvenile. And his stablemates were conceding a lot of experience to him and simply weren't up to the task of seriously challenging him. And, to sum things up, he is one of the classier colts of this crop, one of the faster individuals. But aside from the stumble on Saturday, leaving the gate, he hasn't had to overcome any major adversity. And so while he must continue to be respected, I would not classify him yet as the absolute one to beat.
I think that's the key for me too, Vance, having not really seen him have to face much adversity yet. I don't want to say that he is necessarily the one to beat just yet. We don't even know if he's the one to beat out of Bob Baffert's barn, because Barnes is the more heavily hyped horse out of Bob Baffert's barn at the moment as the 6-1 top individual betting choice in Pool 3. But Citizen Bull was the second best choice of Baffert's Barn at 17-1 in that pool 3. I also wanted to mention too that Bob Baffert has won the last 7 editions of this race. So it's not much of a surprise that he won once again, and he has won with post-time favorites in all of those races. So Citizen Bull just followed the pattern right there. But as far as the runner-up, Rodriguez, I thought he did show some potential there, re-rallying when it looked like he was dropping out of contention around the far turn. Then was able to get back up and finish second, 2 1/4 lengths ahead of Matticat Road, another from Baffert's Barn in this race. And Baffert also said that Citizen Bull was not cranked up totally. This was a comeback prep for him. And then as far as Rodriguez, he said he looked a little bit confused and needs more racing. But Rodriguez is another that I think is one to watch. And I know, James, you certainly have your eye on him because you have some money on him already in pool 3, I believe.
That's correct. Yes. I like this effort considering you're right. I mean, he on the far turn, a real peculiar couple strides there, or it looked like he was dropping out of it. And then he, like you said, he sort of re-rallied to be second. That's a good building block off of a maiden win where he pretty much, once again, had everything his own way. So that's a good experience, I think, finishing second in there. And Matticat Road was just pace disadvantage, and they were going a mile. He's got a chance to keep showing more at longer distances with better pace setups.
Well, aside from the Robert B. Lewis, we also had the Withers and the Holy Bull on the road to the Kentucky Derby. And then as far as the Oaks, we had the Forward Gal and the Las Virgenes. So who impressed you the most from the other Derby and Oaks preps, Vance?
Well, no one typically expects the Derby winner to have won or placed in the Withers Stakes beforehand, but I thought Captain Cook deserved some notice after winning the Withers at Aqueduct on Saturday. He displayed good tactical foot, stretching out from 7 furlongs to 1 1/8 here, and made a nice move to the lead, turning from home, and won comfortably in the end. And he earned a relatively strong 100 Brisnet speed rating for this performance. So I thought it was above average and quite good. He's trained by Rick Dutrow, who obviously knows how to get a horse without many miles on him to win the Derby. He did that with Big Brown back in 2008, and Big Brown, of course, was making only his 4th career start in the Kentucky Derby. Captain Cook is expected to make his final prep in the Wood Memorial in early April over the same track and distance, and if he runs well there, he'll be making his 5th start at Churchill Downs on the first Saturday in May. I guess the leading caveat with Captain Cook is his pedigree. His sire, Practical Joke, has so far been more effective getting sprinters and milers. His dam placed only once in stakes company, and that was in the 7 furlong Forward Gal Stakes at Gulfstream. But one bit of good news pedigree-wise is that Captain Cook descends from the champion 3-year-old filly Birdtown, who won the Kentucky Oaks over 1 1/8, and her half-brother, of course, was Birdstone, who won the Belmont Stakes over Smarty Jones at 1.5 miles, and then also won the Travers Stakes. So he's got a little bit of distance on the bottom side of the pedigree. We'll have to see if that is good enough for him to last 1.25 miles.
Yep. Running score, I'll just say real quick because I'm going to focus on Burnham Square. But running score, he raced once at Keeneland, ran 6th in the main special weight. Then he was part of the Mary Lou Whitney dispersal. He was purchased by St. Elias Stable, turned over to Rick Dutrow. They spent $410,000 for him at that 2 horses of racing age sale. He came back in December, and it was a sloppy track going 7 furlongs, but he was brilliant that day. Didn't know what to make of like the competition and the wet track. I thought the Wood was a huge performance. He tracked the pace in 3rd, so he didn't have everything his own way. When Manny Franco asked him, he had responded, I thought, very sharply, showed a real nice turn of foot, and he came home pretty quick. The final time was solid, his final 1/8 of a mile. I liked his effort, but the horse that impressed me the most was Burnham Square. Now, Burnham Square did not break sharply, and he got bumped around on both turns in Saturday's Holy Bull Stakes at Gulfstream Park, but he unleashed a sensational late run to just blow by Tappan Street in upper stretch and win going away by 1 3/4 lengths. He got triple digit Brisnet speed and late pace numbers for that performance. And Burnham Square is a gelded son of Liam's Map, who in his first start, he ran a close second at Keeneland. In his second start, he ran a close third at Churchill Downs in November. And Ian Wilkes came back in December at Gulfstream and added blinkers. And to say the blinkers have made a big difference for Burnham Square would be an understatement. He broke his maiden next time out by 9.5 lengths, and he just continued to advance in that Holy Bull. A really strong turn of foot. He's got all this stamina in his dam side. You might not think Liam's map for the classic races, but I like Burnham Square's pedigree and his build for longer distances. And, you know, Ian Wilkes said as much right after the Holy Bull. He said it's the blinkers. He basically said the horse was with the jockeys, you know, had to go to a full ride at the half-mile pole because he wouldn't respond. He'd run away from horses. He wouldn't run into the dirt. And he said, he basically said he was doing everything wrong and the blinkers made that were the key. And it's not fair to compare Burnham Square to any former like classic winner. But whenever I hear of a horse improving with the addition of blinkers, my first thought always goes to Empire Maker. In the fall of 2002, Empire Maker broke his maiden in late October. He came back a month later in the Remsen, was the big favorite. He was training lights out for it. He ran third, an even third. Then he came and he went to California. He ran in the Sham Stakes. He went off 2-5, and he got beat by a horse that was a future claimer. And they've already named other horses the same name. He got beat right by a horse way inferior to him. So Bobby Frankel put blinkers on Empire Maker after those two disappointing performances, just like Burnham Square had in his first two maiden races. And he won the Florida Derby by 10 lengths. Then he went and beat Funnyside in the Wood Memorial. And if it wasn't for a bruised foot that completely compromised his training on Kentucky Derby week, you know, it might have been different on Derby Day. But as it was, he finished a gallant second to Funnyside, earned a measure of redemption 5 weeks later when denying him the Triple Crown bid. And the blinkers made a huge difference for that son of unbridled song. So Burnham Square has got a lot going for him off this win. Wilkes has said he's going to target him, point him to come back in the Fountain of Youth on March 1st.
Burnham Square was a standout for me as well. You know, if you're looking at the Oaks races, Tenma only had to face 2 rivals. And I know you're going to talk Eclatant in our next segment, James, so I'll save that for the next segment. But with Burnham Square, he had the highest brisnet speed figure among the winners of the 3 Kentucky Derby prep races this weekend. He also earned a 121 class rating. You mentioned the blinkers making a difference. Edgar Zayas also picked up the mount 2 starts back. That's potentially been a difference maker as well since shipping over to Gulfstream Park for Burnham Square. And then, you know, 2 starts back when he broke his maiden, it was by more than 9 lengths that he won that race. And he had everything his own way, breaking from the rail. This time he broke from the outside and he made up ground along the inside, but he dropped back 7 lengths starting out that race. So he had a totally different trip this time around and looked very professional, I thought, in this win. And then as far as the runner-up, Tappan Street, Brad Cox said he was still pretty impressed with that performance. It was just his second career start and he raced a bit wide there. And also have to mention Ferocious. I don't know what's going on with Ferocious, but he had a little bit of traffic trouble, but I don't know if you can make excuses this time around for him finishing pretty far back in 4th place. So what did
Sprinter. I mean,
Sprinter.
I don't know. I mean, they might, you know, I know he's not bred to be a sprinter, but that's like might be what they're thinking. You know, they could always point for a race like the Gotham and try to get him to bounce back. You're right about Tappan Street. Second start, first at 2 turns. That was a very good, solid performance. And I'm glad you brought up that trip. He got away slowly. He broke dead last. It wasn't a good break. And one thing he showed in the Holy Bull, also Burnham Square, is that he could take kickback because he saved ground along the rail the entire back stretch and took plenty of kickback before angling out for his late run.
To close out, let's talk about what else caught our eye. So, James, let's stick with those Oaks prep races and Eclatant and her stablemate as well.
Yeah, Eclatant, you know, she broke her first 2. She won her first 2 races sprinting last year real sharply. And then she went to the Goldenrod and basically was in contention at the top of the stretch and weakened to be beaten 8.5 lengths. So she cut back to 7 furlongs in the forward gal, and I think relished the cutback of distance. Basically, got up to edge her stablemate Stunner, who's another one who won the tempted sprinting or a one-turn distance last fall by open lengths. And when she tried 2 turns over the winter, Stunner weakened on the lead and got beat. So I think I thought it was refreshing after the race. Eclatant Stunner ran 1-2 for Brad Cox, and Brad Cox just said, these are fillies they'll be looking at races like the Beaumont at Keeneland in April, the 8 Bells at Churchill Downs on Derby weekend, Oaks Undercard, and the Grade 1 test that's at Saratoga this summer. And those are all like 7 furlongs or sprint races for fillies. And Gulfstream Park's running these first 2 Kentucky Oaks qualifiers at one-turn distances, and they set up perfectly for fillies that don't want to go 1 1/8 miles in the Kentucky Oaks. So Eclatant took advantage of that in there. I'll mention on Saturday, River Thames. I thought a really nice debut win over Vanderbilt in early January. Came back and won a one-turn allowance by 6.5 lengths. Just blew him away. He looked really good. He's by McLean's Music, who did sire Triple Crown winner. I'm sorry, Preakness winner, Cloud Computing. But most of his most prominent offspring are like, Grade 1 winning types at one turn, like Jackie's Warriors and others. And River Thames comes from a speed-oriented female family, so I think it's fair to question whether he's going to relish longer distances moving forward, but I think he's definitely earned himself a shot at a Kentucky Derby qualifier next out for Todd Pletcher. And finally, Copian. When Copian won the La Brea in December, she was like 37-1. It was her first start since April, and she came back in the Santa Monica on Saturday and won by about 5 lengths. She got an enormous 106 Bristnet speed rating, and she's now 4 for 4 at one-turn distances. So if you didn't have Copian among your top-ranked filly mare, older dirt sprinters, you got to add her to the list because she's going to be targeting races like the Grade 1 Derby City Distaff at 7 furlongs on the Kentucky Derby undercard. And I mean, to me, she's got a huge chance to be a major factor in that division moving forward, Vance.
Yeah, I'll talk about the Swale Stakes at Gulfstream on Saturday. It turned out much different than what bettors anticipated. You had 2 well-backed second-time starters in there, Gunmetal and Grayscale. Both of them flopped, however, after exchanging bumps at the start, and the beneficiary here, as we see, was Gate to Wire, who didn't run to his name, but he came by coming from off the pace, but he sure looked at home in his first ever attempt on the dirt. He won by 5 lengths at odds of 13-1. Gate to Wire, he's trained by Todd Pletcher. He started his career on grass last year. He won his debut at Saratoga. And then he placed in the Futurity at Aqueduct in his second start. And then he had a troubled trip in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. And then further hiding his form going into the Swale, he was a nondescript 5th in an allowance last month, going 5 furlongs over the Topeka course. And 5 furlongs was simply too short of a race for him. So with this win on dirt, and of course with his fine turf form from last year, Gate to Wire has the potential to be a very effective horse in almost any major one-turn race for 3-year-olds the rest of the season. And to me, he's a horse to keep an eye on.
And I will mention a pair of female turf runners that impressed in Florida this weekend, starting with Saffron Moon for Chad Brown. It should come as no surprise to see Chad Brown with female turf stars. And Saffron Moon scored her first stakes victory in the Grade 3 Endeavor at Tampa Bay Downs and did so in stakes record time in 139.92 over turf labeled firm. And she was just 3/5 of a second off the course record at Tampa as well. And this is a 6-year-old daughter of Malibu Moon, started her career on the dirt, and then in her 4th career start, broke her maiden switching over to turf, now 4 for 10 lifetime. And maybe one to watch in Chad Brown's barn, but we know he'll probably have a lot of other female turf runners to keep an eye on as well this season. And then we also had Vixen, who made her 3-year-old debut this at Gulfstream Park this weekend. The Swedish Chant won that stakes race by 2 1/4 lengths. This is the daughter of Acoma. She ran a pretty good 6 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf last November, and other than that, had won or placed in 3 of 4 starts as a 2-year-old. So a very good filly for Mark Cassie to also watch in the female turf division.
I think Saffron Moon has a chance to be good. I mean, I think she's just getting going right now, so I was impressed by her. Flavian Pratt went to Tampa on Saturday and went 4 for 4, won a couple of stakes, no surprise, and had a real nice looking maiden winner for Chad Brown.
Off to a good start already after a great 2024.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's all the time we have today for the Racing Roundtable. Again, those tickets are available for Derby Week at KentuckyDerby.com, and we will be back next Tuesday. Also, submissions open for the Survivors Parade as well at Kentucky Oaks. Don't forget about that at KentuckyDerby.com. And we will be back next Tuesday to recap more stakes racing on the Racing Roundtable.
When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With TwinSpires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with TwinSpires. And now you can race to victory with TwinSpires tournaments.